Welcome to the Country Hipster Podcast. My name is Paul. I am the Country Hipster. As you can tell, my only guest for today's episode is none other than the wonderful and great and kind of, washed out with the light Mr. Snoop Dogg on his bike there. And I'm not getting up to adjust him at this point. I should have realized a minute ago that he was kind of washed out, but that's okay. Snoop, he likes to hang out in the back sometimes, not be noticed as much. So the music you just heard was none other than the Unholy Four with their hit song Dirty Knife. So go check out the Unholy Four from Charlottesville, Virginia. You can find them on Spotify and Bandcamp, as well as Apple Music. And, if you just Google search Unholy Four, you'll find them, I'm sure. So real quick, the business, got to get to the business super fast. Friday night, I am playing, tomorrow night as a matter of fact, I am playing at the Bristol AOH at 614 Corson Street in Bristol, PA, with none other than a friend of mine named CJ Mills. He's going to be joining me on the fiddle. CJ and I did a bunch of shows this past summer down at the Ludlam in Sea Isle City. I think we played like 3 or 4 times together. We actually haven't played since then, so it's been since like the end of August since we've played together. But CJ's joining me Friday night at the Bristol AOH in Bristol, PA. So I hope you will make it out for that. So as you can tell, Adam's not here. There's no other people here. It's just me and you, the listeners here. And that's because we did talk about this in the last episode that we did, which was the Decemberist. Adam started his new job. So his schedule changed a little bit. But also my wife Katie's birthday is coming up. So rather than try to, adjust here, adjust there, do stuff while, I should be celebrating my beautiful and wonderful wife, we decided, hey, we'll just kind of do a random record episode here, and we'll get back to regular Country Hipster Podcast business next week. So this is going to be a random record grading and review, and the record that we're going to do is going to end up on our Discogs page and OttsvilleRecordGarage.com when we are done. It's actually already on there. I just posted it all and put it on there. But I'll get into that in a second, because we are also a drinking podcast with a vinyl record problem. And what I'm doing here is I am drinking a Shiner Bock, which is from, I know I'm going to fucking butcher this, but the good thing is there's nobody here to correct me when I say things wrong today. So it's Spatzel, no, it's not Spatzel. It's made Spotzel Brewery from Texas, from Shine, Texas, or Shiner, Texas. Yeah, Shiner, Texas. Spoetzl. German words get weird with their Z's. So this is what this is. It's delightful beer. I checked it in on my Untapped, which I think is just Paul 3 on Untapped. If you want to follow me on Untapped or become my friend, actually, I'll tell you 1 second, and because I can look it up real quick. Look at that. My profile is Paul 3, capital Paul, and the number 3. So if you are on Untapped, look me up, and we can be friends. You can follow me, I'll follow you. I did check in this beer at as I'm drinking it in the Ottsville Record Garage, so you can check in your beers at the Ottsville Record Garage. So so there you go. But at any rate, I'm drinking this here. Sunday, this Sunday, I am finally getting around to making hot dog water with friend of the podcast, Bob Hurst, who's from Village Ale Works. He's been on a couple episodes here. He was on the Billy Joel episode very early on, and then he was on the Pet Sounds episode. He has not been back since, but he will be back. Definitely will be back for at least one more episode, because one of the things that Jack and I did today was we brewed the cream ale, which is the second part of our black and tan. So a long time ago, we said we were going to make a black and tan, so similar to like we were trying to go with a Yingling black and tan, so because Jack really loves the Yingling black and tan. So about 2 weeks ago we brewed the stout. Yingling uses a porter, we're using an Irish stout, so We brewed the stout about 2 weeks ago. We started the second fermentation today, but then also brewed the cream ale, which is the tan part of our beer. Yingling uses their premium beer. The closest I could get to a premium beer from the Northern Brewers, who we get our supplies from, is a cream ale. This is cool. This is the second time Jack and I have done a cream ale. The second batch we ever brewed, and the first batch we did on our own without actually the help of Bob Hurst was a cream ale, and it turned out pretty badly. The AVB was really low. So, I'm kind of excited to have another crack at cream ale. But this one also, the ABV might be a little weird on this too because of where the gravity came in, but that's fine. We'll figure it all out. And basically we're going to put these together in about 2 weeks when the cream ale is done fermenting and the stout has done its second fermentation, and that's how we're creating our black and tan. The plan is when we do that, we're going to do the tastings of all of them, the cream ale, the stout, and the black and tan. And I do plan on having Bob on that episode to do that. But also we will be making, finally, Bob and Paul's hot dog water will finally get brewed this Sunday. And I'm going to say it's probably going to be a 4-week period before we actually have any of those to try. So it might actually coincide pretty well that the hot dog water is done right around the same time that our black and tan is done. If you're interested in watching any of the little updates we put in the brewing, you can actually follow me on TikTok. It's just at The Country Hipster. It's not The Country Hipster Podcast. That would be Instagram. It's just The Country Hipster. So I am on TikTok, and that's where I usually put most of the brewing updates as to the home brews that we're doing and the different stuff and the different processes we're going through. So if you're interested, do that. If you're not, it's all good too. If you think I've rambled too much already, we'll just jump ahead 7 minutes. But if you listen this long, you're basically at where we're getting to, which is the record that I am doing today. So in these past random record episodes, I did a little pomp and circumstance of like pulling out, putting a bunch of records together and pulling them out and picking which one it's going to be. And oh, look at this. It's going to be the fucking Carpenters. I didn't do that today. I have so many goddamn records I have to grade in general. There's more records not graded here in the Ottsville Record Garage than are graded. So I just went to the pile of stuff that I need to grade. This is stuff that I know the value is potentially high enough that I'm going to listen to anyway. So I just went there and I grabbed the fucking first record that I thought would be interesting. And that is the self-titled album from the band Breakfast Club. So that is what we are doing our random record review and grading on today. Do not get confused with the movie The Breakfast Club. The band and the movie have nothing to do with one another. What I'll say about this band, now there wasn't really a whole lot of factoids, so I kind of put together my review and the factoids all in one. A lot of people are when you say Breakfast Club, you think of the movie Breakfast Club, which is a fucking amazing movie. Me and my brother Brian, when we would go to our dad's, Skipper, his house on the weekends that we were supposed to be there, which was every other weekend. He would pick us up really early on Saturday morning because he was a registered nurse who worked overnight shifts. So he would pick us up really early Saturday morning, and he would bring us to his place, and then he would go to sleep for a few hours, and we would just be chilling out and watching movies or whatever. It was, like I said, it was pretty early in the morning, so we didn't really care. It was a Saturday morning. But for a while there, every Saturday morning, we watched the movie The Breakfast Club, me and Brian, and when Michael was there, he would watch it with us as well. So this album, though, it has nothing to do with the movie. It's not in the movie. It's nothing with the soundtrack, anything like that. Literally, the band is called Breakfast Club. So this band, the easiest way to describe the sound of this band and what this band is if you think of the Thompson Twins, Bananarama, early Madonna, early Depeche Mode, Aha, the Pet Shop Boys. That is what Breakfast Club is kind of like all rolled up into one. I want to say that Breakfast Club is probably, because I've talked about this with emo, the early 2000s emo, where they seem to have the copycat syndrome of a sound. These guys are definitely part of the copycat syndrome of the early 1980s. This is synth pop at its best. It's got the drum machine, snare drum sound throughout it, as well as like that background slap bass that you would hear on like fucking Night Court, like the theme to Night Court or in between scenes and shit like that. But like that's like throughout this whole album, and you know, honestly, I kind of love it. This album embodies the early 1980s New York post-disco nightclub scene, and that's really as accurate as I can get with this. It's almost generic. It's definitely fucking dated. But it's wonderful. I love every bit of this album. I'm not gonna lie, I really do. It's a good, danceable, lovable album. When I first put this on, I actually had no idea who it was or what to expect by this. But then I heard the second song, which is their hit song called Right on Track. It's like, right on track, I'm gonna get you back. Yeah, so that's their song. That's this band. You've heard that song a million times. And when that came on, I'm like, oh, fuck, that's who did this song. This is the band that did that song. And that's what you'll do, too, if you actually go through and listen to this. You'll be like, oh, yeah, I know that fucking song. That's, like, on, like, every, like, fucking, like, everybody at, every, like, weddings it gets played at all the time. I think. I don't know. I haven't been to a wedding in a while. But I would think, like, that's, like, kind of like, oh, yeah, we're going to get up and dance after we've had a bunch of drinks. And, you know what I mean? You have your fucking, like, you know, white aunts and uncles who were like doing their, like, you know, disco and shit like that, and everybody's just like, all right, cool, yeah, let's get drunk. So at any rate, interesting fact, and here kind of come the factoids. Madonna played drums for this band. She actually played, I didn't even know she played drums, number one, but she played drums for Breakfast Club. She was dating the one member of the club, or of the band, but eventually left the band to form Emmy and the Emmys, which she then left Emmy and the Emmys to do her solo career. And it kind of took off from there. Just keep that in mind when I talk about my top three and bottom one. That Madonna used to play drums for this band. So it's very interesting. She's not on this album. She'd already been out of the band by the time this album came out. But yeah, so they did. This is the only album they released, at least on a major record label. But they did record a second album for MCA, right? MCA Records. They did record a second album for MCA Records, which ultimately was rejected by the label. Like, this is a musician. Like, I think about like, how much would that fucking suck, right? So like, you go through, you work all this thing to, like, you know, especially then, like, you're working, you're playing all the clubs, you're doing all this stuff to get a record deal. And then you get a record deal and you put out a record and it goes out, and then you go on tour, and presumably they had to have gone on some tour, probably as like the supporting band for the Thompson Twins or the Pet Shop Boys or, you know, Aha or one of those bands that I mentioned earlier. And then they had that one song, which I think like ultimately like it did chart like fairly high. I think it was like top 50 on the Billboard charts at the time for like the dance hall music. So you had that, and then you put together another record and you bring it to the label, and they're like, yeah, no, fuck you. You're done. And it's like, oh fuck, man, that sucks. But they did release a single after this album. It was the last thing they released as a band, and it was a cover of the Beatles song Drive My Car for the 1988 film License to Drive, which starred the Coreys and Heather Graham. So that was very interesting. When I read that, I was like, oh, okay. And I know I've heard that version. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's kind of cool. I've seen that movie once or twice. I'm not like, oh my God, I love that movie, but I do like the Corey movies. They're kind of like they are very kind of like goofy 1980s movies. Dream a Little Dream I like better than License to Drive, but that was definitely my first exposure to Heather Graham was License to Drive. I like the scene when she's all drunk and she's like dancing on the car and putting like dents into the hood of the car. I thought that was pretty funny. I made it. I made the shot. Got that bottle cap into the trash can that's over there. But that's my general feelings on the album. Like it's fun. It's danceable. It's a good, solid album. It's definitely every bit of 1987. It's actually more. It's probably every bit of like 1984. If we're being honest, like 1983, 1984, it was just happened to be released in 1987. Which if you look at like, 1987, 88, 89, it's when like things were kind of starting to change, more of the little less of the poppy dance, a little bit more of the hair bands were in there, heading towards the grunge bands. Hip hop was starting to form its like, early foundation, even though it was like hip hop goes back even earlier than that, but it's earlier commercial foundation, I guess, is the better way to do it. And so this album's every bit of 1983, 84 that just happened to be released in 1987, and probably did as much as it was going to do. If maybe that second album would have gotten released had they been discovered earlier by MCA Records, but alas, they were not. And this is the only album by Breakfast Club that was released, and I do like it. It's a good album. So this is probably going to be a really fast episode, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Regina Factor. Well, I would like to say Regina would like it, but she is in bed right now. So it doesn't really matter what the Regina Factor is. Plus, this is a random record episode, and and a grading and whatnot, and so we don't have time for the Regina Factor on this anyway, as we never do when we're doing these random records. But I would like to think she would. I don't think she would hate it. You know what I mean? At the worst, I think it would be indifferent. But I would like to think Regina would be a little dancey, like woohoo, So moving right along. Top 3 songs. My personal top 3 songs on this guy. Number 1. It's the hit song, Right on Track. It's a great song. Like I said, when you hear it, you should go on to Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you get your music. You could probably look it up on YouTube as well. Just put in Right on Track, Breakfast Club. About 30 seconds into the song, you will know exactly like what song this is and be like, oh, okay, yeah, I know that song. That's pretty cool. My number 2 on this is actually pretty crazy. They do an amazing cover of the song Expressway to My Heart, which when I was listening to this, that came on, I'm like, oh fuck, this is really good. It's an amazing, it's really good version of that song. And number 3 on this is Tongue Tied. That's the last song on the album. That is my number 3, which while that song was playing, and this is why I told you to try to remember that Madonna was the drummer of this band. While that song was playing, Holiday by Madonna started going through my brain. So there's I'm not saying that Madonna stole Tongue Tied and, made it into Holiday. I'm saying that there is a line there you can take from Madonna's Holiday and, point it to Tongue Tied. Although it could have been the other way around. I don't know when that album came out from Madonna. It might have been, I guess it was a little bit earlier than that, because I think 87 she was already on to Like a Virgin and whatnot. So maybe it is the other way around. I will say that on the Wikipedia, I did see that. Hold on. Where is it? Drive my car. The person she actually dated from the band, hold on. This is provided. I'm wasting your time here. You're like, God damn it, you were moving right along, and now you're so dumb, and we don't really feel like hearing you talk. But at any rate, one of the members of the band was actually helped. It was co-writer on some of Madonna's stuff anyway. So that's probably where that connection is. I mean, at that point, he might have been already writing songs with Madonna or for Madonna, and that's where that happened. Okay, another interesting fact. I didn't even realize this till I was looking at this. former member of Breakfast Club, as it came up on the wiki, is none other than former American Idol judge Randy Jackson. Apparently Randy Jackson, is that Randy Jackson? I don't think that's Randy Jackson. But apparently Randy Jackson was also in Breakfast Club. Look at that. Not the movie, the band. So that's kind of funny too. So there's a couple connections there for a band who had one album and ultimately one hit song to have spawned two recognizable names in the music business is it's actually pretty fucking cool. For an album that I'm sure if you're looking at this or listening to this and you're like, I don't fucking know what this is, but there you go. If only I had a samurai sword and I could get Randy Jackson to sign it, that would be even better. Least favorite song on this album is Never Be the Same, which is the opening song, which is not even a bad song. It's still a good song. It's just probably my, like, you know, when it first came on, like, I'm just like, is this what I'm in for? And then Right on Track, I was like, oh, okay. You know, maybe if it opened with Right on Track, I would have been a little more open to Never Be the Same. But I'm not even close to Never Be the Same. It just didn't strike me as good as the rest of the album. But all the songs are good. All the songs are danceable. And they're fun songs. This is a fun album. Like, if you were to do, like, say, like a, I don't know, like a theme party. You were going to run like a 1980s theme party. This is one of the albums you want to have playing in the background at your party, you know, because it is every bit of 1980s, dated, fun, danceable. It's just cool. So that's my overall general review. It's just fucking cool. It's a fun album. So we're moving right along. Like I said, it's going to be a pretty short episode, which I'm sure you don't mind, considering we sometimes talk a little bit and go on some crazy tangents. Like I said, this is a record review, but it's also a record grading. This is not from my personal collection. It's not going to go into my personal collection. I don't like it that much to want to necessarily own it. So this is already listed on our Discogs page and OttsvilleRecordGarage.com. So you can actually see it on there and you can purchase this record. This came into that general rough idea of value of something that could be worth enough money to for us to definitely want to listen to it. When I looked it up, what I have here actually is a 1987 Columbia House pressing. So there is the CRC on the label as well as the back of the jacket, which means that somebody got 20 records for 10 cents or a penny or whatever it was, and then never did anything else with it. So that is what this is. And at the time, Columbia House was getting specific pressings for Columbia House. They were specifically for Columbia House. They weren't general releases. There were general releases, but then there were the Columbia House pressings. This was definitely a Columbia House pressing. By all the markings, everything matches that. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes the Columbia House pressings, or the club pressings in general, whichever the club is at that time, can be worth more money than the general pressings. One of the reasons is because it's usually a one and done, depending on the artist. But sometimes they're not. So this when I first looked this up, this was one of those albums that was in that possible $7.99 or better value possibility. Which when we get there with Ottsville Record Garage, if it's going to be a higher dollar resale value, I'm probably definitely going to listen to it. Sometimes I don't, like if I have like some classical music and some operas that like could be worth more money. I don't necessarily listen to them because I don't want to spend 3 hours on a 5 record opera set or whatever. You know what I mean? It might sell, it might never sell. And so I gotta figure out what are the best things to do it and when to do it. This is pop. This is, danceable. This will probably sell. So this is something that when it's in that area, even though I didn't really know the band, didn't know much about the band, it's definitely in that area where I would probably listen to it. Plus, I thought it was kind of interesting anyway. I never heard of the band. So I was like, I'll listen to it anyway. So like I said, this is a 1987 Columbia House pressing. The media, I graded the media at very good plus and the sleeve at very good plus. And I will read to you the description that is on Discogs as well as OttsvilleRecordGarage.com for this this title. Jacket has very light wear and is still in the original shrink. Vinyl has some light wear on side 1 that does not affect play, and hardly any wear at all on side 2, which is because the hit song is on side 1. It looks great, plays beautifully, and sounds amazing. Cleaned and ships in a poly sleeve. So I am going to pop on our price tag there, which is what we do with little post-it notes so that we're not using like even I've mentioned this before, even removable stickers and removable labels, they leave a residue. They're not as removable as people think. And plus, if it sits for too much time, it ultimately gets stuck on there. Post-its are the easiest thing to do. I literally write the price and the grade on it. So if you do come to one of our pop-up events, like I had this past Friday, which went very well, you'll see we have all these little post-it notes all over the records. And that is why, because they're very easy to remove. They're very easy to put on. They don't get stuck. They don't leave a residue. And this now is in its poly sleeve. It's going to go on our shelves until someone buys it. Hopefully that happens sooner than later. And it is available. It is available right now on our Discogs page and OttsvilleRecordGarage.com. So you can go and you can check it. There's even a section on OttsvilleRecordGarage.com about the Country Hipster podcast. And we have listed all the albums that we've covered on the podcast so far. You can actually go and see and say, oh, okay, cool, I want to buy this then. Or, if we don't have it in stock, then you set up a notification, we'll get it in stock for you. So there you go. That is the end of the Ottsville Record Garage commercial to an extent, because the whole podcast is ultimately a commercial for Ottsville Record Garage. If you guys didn't know that, you do now. We actually didn't hide that. Go back to the pilot episode. I made that very clear. So at any rate, that's it. That's what I got for this album. Good, fun, danceable album. It's available for sale, $5.99. Which also I didn't mention this. If you look on the Discogs listing for this pressing, for the Columbia House pressing, $5.99 is actually the lowest price on Discogs for this particular pressing. There's two other pressings which are regular pressings. Didn't even look at them because I didn't have those. I have this one. But for this pressing, at the time that we're recording this, it is the lowest priced copy, which is generally what I shoot for. Another thing real quick, back to that, OttsvilleRecordGarage.com and this listing. It's not for every record because I didn't think to do this until I was like 700-800 records into listing them onto the website. But I did start doing it on anything from a certain point on. If you look at our used records specifically, and sometimes with the new if we have them on Discogs, but more so with the used records, if you look on the listing, and it is on this particular one, you'll see, I give the description. It'll say like, hey, this is a 1987 Columbia House pressing. Here is the description, which I already read to you. Here's the media value. Here's the media grade. Here's the sleeve grade. And then there's a little thing that says, click here to see full album details. If you click that, it will take you to the release page on our Discogs page. It'll open it up in a new window, or at least it's supposed to if I set it up right, which actually, let me make sure I set this up right while I have it open here. I did not, so now I just fixed that. There you go. Edit the link and save. So yes, it says click here for complete album details. If you click on that, it will bring you to the release page of this album, our particular release page, and it has all the information, has the track listing, and then you can actually view the actual release page. And if you do that, you'll actually be able to see that there are more copies for sale, and then you can compare the prices with the grades, and you will generally notice almost every single time ours is the lowest priced. And you gotta be fucking kidding me. All right, so let me see something here. So literally I'm doing this and I go and I click on that, and yeah, so literally someone just bought this. Someone literally just bought this album as we are recording this. So You can still see it on OttsvilleRecordGarage.com, but you will not see it on our Discogs page because someone just bought it. Yeah. So there you go. I'm gonna ship this out on Monday. Today's actually Saturday, so I'm gonna ship this out on Monday. That is the beauty of Discogs. This I could not even fucking plan that any better. That is amazing. I'm super fucking happy and kind of thinking like, why didn't I grade this and list it fucking months ago? Or at this point, it could have been years ago. I have no idea how long I've been holding on to this record. So yes. So there you go. Breakfast Club is sold. Someone else will enjoy it, but you should then look up the album on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you get it. So next week we will be back. It'll be business as usual. We will be covering the album that we pulled from the box of Mike last week, which is Interpol, Turn on the Bright Lights. So Adam will be back with us. This is a Booze and Vinyl episode. So the official bartender of the Ottsville Record Garage and the Country Hipster podcast, Tom Bernard, however I'm going to say it, he will be back here, as well as a special guest. So that's actually, I swear to God, I am like fucking kind of giddy right now because this is pretty amazing that we literally just sold this as we were recording this podcast. So that's cool. Awesome. So on that note, looks like I have some work to do. It is time to